again. The long-awaited return of Romane. Romane, welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
How you feeling?
Feeling good.
Good. And you came back strong. You came back with a powerful topic.
I did. I had time to think.
Well, you know what? That's always good. We have time to think and ponder, So tell us what you came up with.
I came up with the male image in the media. And Roman, what's that mean? Just how the media plays into how we see Black men in a family dynamic, and how it affects the unit as a whole, how it affects earning potential, and again the disparities in earning potential. And does the media have anything to do with that?
The media has a lot to do with that. In fact, the image of Black men probably goes back to about 1915 when D.W. Griffith released the movie Birth of a Nation. And in that movie, he depicted Black men as these savages who went around ravaging white women. And of course, based on that, there was a need to start a group known as the Ku Klux Klan. And they would go around and defend unsuspecting white people from these savage Black men that were going around committing these horrendous crimes. And, that was 1915. Now here we are more than 100 years later, and the image is still pretty much the same. Not a whole lot has changed. People still see Black men in that light. I guess it may not be as severe as it was, during that time frame when the movie was released, but it's still not really reflective of who we are.
It's not. And I think that they like to paint a picture that our men aren't parenting their children. But one of the things that I noticed in my reading was that they can same household. And you don't have to live in the same household to be a good and effective parent. And statistics show that Black men are great parents, and they are involved. They may not be in the household. They may not live in the household with their children, but they're active parents.
So I would be kind of curious to, one, what the statistics show, and also who's compiling these statistics. Because the media shapes perception. And I kind of hate to use this person's name, but I'm going to go out on a limb and use it. Former President Trump, right? So the media created an image for him where he is portrayed as a God-fearing man, right? A believing man, one who is a family man. Well, did he raise any of his children in the household? So for Black men, the media typically, and let me give you an example of what the media does. So let's say there's an incident. And while I'm saying that, let me just say that our thoughts and prayers are with the folks that were on the train this morning in Brooklyn that suffered through that horrendous trauma on the train.
Amen.
So our thoughts are with you. But, getting back to what I was saying, there was an incident this morning, and for the media, they will want to find someone to tell basically what they saw, an eyewitness. Well, for some reason, the media will not go and speak to the person who appears articulate, the person who is well-dressed. We were going to find somebody who plays into that paradigm, right? That Black folks are not very intelligent. We're not well-spoken. We come outside looking in the old way, right? Don't know how to conduct ourselves. So the media does that to play into that paradigm. And the same thing with when you talk about black men and their relationships with their families. It's the same pattern repeated over and over.
I agree. And the sad part is that we kind of take it and run with it,
Mm-hmm.
and we help to perpetuate this negative image of our men. And, you know, like newsflash for the ladies, like at some point we have to take some accountability and say, we're not going to help um, diminish
Mm-hmm.
the image and reputation of our men. Somebody got to uplift you guys.
I'm glad you said that, but a lot of women, and I guess black women in particular, are angry, frustrated, disappointed. I wrote a piece for the sistership the other day, and the title was "I don't need a man, I just need Jesus."
Mm.
And well, you know what it is, right? A lot of women have been disappointed by men. They've been hurt. They've been hurt psychologically, emotionally, physically sometimes. And they turn to the perfect man, the man that's not going to ever leave you, the man that's always going to be there for you, that understands you, that understands your needs, your wants, your desires, the man that is always so kind, so loving. So, because they cannot find that in the street, they go into the church. And for some women, going to church, it's just my own opinion. I think that the church is more than just about religion. It is about spending intimate time with Jesus, right? It is about, that there's no man that compares to this image of Jesus. But this is kind of what you want. A lot of women say, well, I want a saved man. Okay, but even he can't compare. Jesus is the perfect man in every aspect.
Here's my issue with that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they do that because they're so disappointed and they just get a picture in their head that they want somebody like Jesus. I think that they're going to get mad at me again, but I think that women say that in the church because that's kind of what they're being groomed to say.
Mm-hmm.
So I always say, if you want a husband, you better stop saying you don't need a husband, you just need Jesus.
Right.
I think that they're kind of being groomed to say that. And then it gets to a point where they think that they're supposed to say that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it really has anything to do with like this false image that they're looking for. I think that, again, these are just the issues within the four walls of the church.
Well, I had a friend who was an evangelist who told me Jesus was her man, right? And I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? And, she was basically saying that Jesus is her man in every aspect. Okay, I don't quite understand that because, Jesus is not going to lie in the bed next to you. But I think that Jesus fills that void, right? I don't have a man in the household that I can rely on that's going to be there to support me, to help me with the children and all the other decisions that need to be made. But Jesus never fails, right? So Jesus is going to step in and fill that gap. And, it is really an unfair comparison for any man to be put up against,
the Son of God,
who we believe to be the Savior, right? It's an unfair comparison. No man is going to meet all of the expectations, but I think that women have become so turned off that you find, well, let's be realistic. You go to church, black church in particular, it's mostly women in there.
Mm-hmm.
And you also find that there is a prevalence or rise of now female on female relationships.
Mhm.
Because what happens is women are like, I'm tired of going through this. I'm tired of the pain. I'm tired of the anguish. I'm tired of the longing. I'm tired of the lack of responsibility. Now, the problem with that is that represents a small portion of Black men, but that is the image that is sent around the world. So when people come here from other countries who've never interacted with a Black person, they come with these preconceived notions,
Mhm.
right? That, you're over sexualized, you're not very smart, you're on welfare, you are relying on other people to provide for you instead of you going out and seeking opportunities to take care of yourself and your families. And, that's something that we need to address.
We do. We do. We
Yes.
need to address it. And so, what I would say next is that's where the reasoning comes in, because at some point, we need to reason about how we need to address this. Like,
Mhm.
what do we do to start to clean up? And that's just for lack of a better term.
Mhm.
What do we do to start to clean up the image of our men? What do we do to critique and tweak how we as Black women deal with our men?
Mhm.
I think you and I had a discussion on another show about how important it is to know and understand that a dad brings something more to the table than just finances,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely.
We have to, we have to realize that and weigh what's really important. And then the next piece is that we have to really take a look, because that same media is saying that the Black man's earning potential is a direct cause of divorce, because Black women are making more than Black men. When in fact, even if we are making more than Black men, we still not paid what our white counterparts are
Mhm.
paid. So we're still underpaid too. So maybe it's that we need to see each other in that same light, right? And know that we're in this together.
Mhm.
This is not a you fight. This is a us fight.
Well, something, in order to address a problem, in fact, you first have to recognize that there is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So with Black people and, people of color in general, we have been subjected to systematic
Mm-hmm.
racism,
Mm-hmm.
systematic destruction of the nuclear family.
Mm-hmm.
So when we recognize the problem, then we can begin to better address the problem. You have to undo what was done. And, people always said it begins with education. And I'm not just talking about in the classroom, because that's only a small aspect of education. It has to be reinforced at home. Where the child's mind is shaped at home. The foundation is what they learn from mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to begin to educate young people of color and let them know you are not what the media says you are. You are so much more. And I spoke to somebody earlier today. Most of us who are born on this planet never really have a full understanding of who we are or what our purpose here is on this planet. We kind of allow ourselves to be shaped and molded, right, by the environment we're in. So people say you're not smart enough, and what do? You go to school and start failing your classes.
Mm-hmm.
People say you're not pretty enough, and what do? You begin to change who you are. Somebody like, Little Kim. This sister is multi-talented. I mean, when you talk about female rappers, you have to include her in that conversation. She's one of the best ever.
Mm-hmm.
But look at Little Kim 20 years ago and look at Little Kim today. Clearly, this sister has been suffering from severe lack of self-esteem, self-love. She wasn't happy with what she saw when she looked in the mirror, and why. It's part of that systematic destruction of who we are as a people, the things that were important to us. And now we're caught up in, I guess, things that really have no value. We place more value on things than on people, so we have to begin to unlearn. It begins with education and teaching our children.
And then what do you do with, because of course we have to address the next generation so we don't keep perpetuating the cycle, right? But what do you do to arrest the destruction of self-image and self-esteem in our men who are already adults and who are struggling to be a parent and struggling to be a husband? And how about this? Even if not struggling to be a husband, struggling to co-parent. How do we arrest the destruction?
I found that there's so many people that are adults, but there's so many basic things they don't know because maybe it wasn't discussed in your home. Maybe you were raised in dysfunction. And if you're raised in dysfunction, to you it's normal. So you go and you bring this dysfunction to other people, not realizing you had a problem. So we have to, again, recognize that there is a problem. And for Black men, yes, brothers, we have a problem, right? We have been taught completely wrong. And it is having an adverse effect on generations, on our communities. I mean, it's so evident. When you see crime on the rise, that's us killing us, us robbing us, right? We're depriving each other. When you see, mom at the park, where's dad? You go to a doctor's appointment, mom is there, where's dad? School night, mom is there, where's dad? So, making money is great, but there's much more to it. There's so many aspects of being a parent. Your children, they're not going to remember the money you brought in. They're going to remember the time you spent with them, the time you took them to the park and you sat down with your son and your daughter and you just talked about what your life was like and your dreams for them. That they will remember.
But do you think that has to start, because we're talking about our offspring, right? So to me, that healthy dynamic, right? Whether you're married or just co-parenting, that healthy dynamic has to start with the two parents first, or with the husband and wife first, right? There has to be this healthy interaction and healthy dynamic. And then the kids do what they do and they kind of feed off of, right? Whatever's going on with the parents. And I think that how do we begin to, if in fact our men are feeling a way because Black women are in the most educated group in the country right now, right? So of course they should really be earning a nice living because they're in this group now, right? So how do we get our men to a place where if this is the dynamic in your relationship, instead of you building and becoming resentful about your wife's or your significant other's earning potential, how about appreciating it because it actually brings more to the family? Like, how do we nurture that? Because the kids come after that.
I think it begins with, I think it was Nancy Reagan that said, just say no. If you are a successful woman, and yes, Black women are the most educated class in this country right now. I'm sorry, brothers, but if you are not on her level, and I'm not talking about just economics, sometimes you might think about it in terms of on her spiritual level, on her intellectual level. Can you even sit down and have an adult conversation with her? If you're not prepared to do that, you don't belong with this woman. And when I say just say no, for women who are in certain positions, Brother comes up to you, clearly, you know this brother's not prepared for this level of relationship. Let him know. Let him know, no, brother, listen, you need some work. And, I'm not saying this to be judgmental. Well, I'm not trying to put you down, brother. But we've been down this road before. We're talking about uplifting ourselves, uplifting our children and our communities. And we're not going to do it. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Mm-hmm. So, brother, if you've been out there and you have a history, right, of not taking care of your children, going from home to home, brother, that cycle has to be broken. And sisters have to say, no, brother, I'm not accepting you in this particular state.
So is this going to work on yourself? Is it just socioeconomic? Or are you talking about them needing to work on themselves, spirit, soul, and body?
Absolutely. All of that, right? Because we're more than just the breadwinner. We're more than just daddy. Like I said, people are born and never really understand or recognize their full, true potential. You don't come to this earth to be a crackhead. You don't come to this earth to be a pimp. Mm-hmm. You don't come to this earth to be a woman beater. That's not why you're here. Mm-hmm. You have allowed circumstance to dictate who you have become. Mm-hmm. So we have to undo that, right? And it takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of self-reflection. You as a black man have to look yourself in the mirror and say, who am I? Mm-hmm. Am I the drug dealer? Am I the guy who is irresponsible, who refuses to take care of his children, who's ducking child support? Is that who I am? And if it is who I am currently, is it who I'm supposed to be? Is that my role as a man?
And I think we have to go a step further and say that we have to, you ever heard that expression, happiness is within yourself?
Right? Absolutely, sure.
So this whole thing with self-esteem, mm-hmm. Cat Williams had that joke where he said, esteem your MF and self. right. But in some respect, that's true, mm-hmm. right? So if we're always looking for all these external stimulants mm-hmm. to make us feel adequate mm-hmm. or to make us, I don't know, feel happy, mm-hmm. right? I think that we spend our whole lives in pursuit of happiness when it's already right there. So
now, I'm not a religious person at all, but sometimes there are scriptures that are apropos. And there's one that says, greater is he that is within me than he that is within the world. Well, who's within you? Mm-hmm. And that's the person you need to become acquainted with, mm-hmm. right? Who you are, what is inside of you, mm-hmm. right? And then you begin to realize I'm not who the media says I am, right? I don't have to go down this destructive path for the rest of my life. And that's what, we're so focused on the exterior. We never look beyond and inside to find out, who am I? Can I do better than working at the car wash? Mm-hmm.
And when you get to that place where you get acquainted with that person within, mm-hmm. when you get acquainted with that person within and you tap into your own happiness, then you don't need those external things anymore. Mm-hmm. So if business doesn't work out, it doesn't matter. You still know your mm-hmm. worth, right? If your wife makes more money than you, it doesn't matter because you know that you still know your worth. So I would just say, so do we agree that in order for us to arrest that destruction, that's where we need to start with just having our men do some self-introspection mm-hmm. and say, bring them to a place, there's that therapy piece again, mm-hmm. but bring them to a place where they say, I'm enough. We always telling the women to say, I'm enough. Mm-hmm. When are we going to tell our men to start knowing and understanding that you are enough?
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I think that because Eurocentric society places so much value on males, mm-hmm. right? That men sometimes think, well, I'm I don't need to do anything else because, I'm a man, right? Well, no, brother, that's not how it works, right? For me, I think man is a title you obtain or attain by your works, right? Not just growing up. Growing up is not enough. That's why in Africa, and even in cultures here in this, well, we did it before years ago, not so much now, but we had manhood training because you don't just take a boy and send him out in the world and say, okay, you figure it out. We had to train and prepare young men to be the warrior, to defend the community, to care for his woman, to care for his children, right? In doing that, you develop an affinity, a love of self, of your woman, of your community, and you will defend that with your life. Now we have young brothers fighting over a street corner. How do you go from, we're supposed to be, the Bible says, well, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, right? Not a corner, not a block. Brother, come on. Is this all there is? This block, this corner, and we're killing each other for a tiny piece of real estate that ain't ours, no way. So, we need to rethink and retrain ourselves, right? And look within ourselves because there's something in there. There's something that our ancestors gave us, passed down through the generations, and it's in there, but it's buried under all of the junk. And the media's perception that we try to fit ourselves into. But there's something in there. There's a positive force in there, but we just got to find it.
I heard someone say this week that one of the biggest struggles for Black men in the now is that they all sit and worry about a legacy for their children. And to me, I think we place so much importance on material things that that we as a people, not just Black men, but we as a people, we've surmised a legacy to be material things or what we're doing on the outside of our family unit. When in fact, the legacy is the fruit that you give your children.
Absolutely.
Those nuggets, the things that you just talked about, raising up another generation of Black men to know their self-worth, right? To make sure your daughter knows and values herself. So I would just ask you, like, as a Black man, what do you say to another Black man about a legacy?
I think it's important that we, again, focus on what's really important. And it's not how much money you make. If you think about it, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't leave a lot of money behind, but he left a lasting legacy. Malcolm X did not leave money behind, but he too left a lasting legacy. So if you're developing a legacy of who you are, representing your ancestors in a positive way, that's more important than the car you drive. I mean, you miss a payment, they're gonna take that.
They sure will.
You miss a couple of mortgage payments, you on the street. But if you know who you are, that can never be taken from you. One thing my father always told me, my father was pro-education. Get as much education as you can, because he said that's something that can never be taken from you.
That's right.
And for Black men, we're worrying about the wrong things. We're focusing on the wrong things. If we will build ourselves, everything else will fall into place, right? The community will fall into place. Women will come back and realize, okay, brother, I see that you've changed. I see that I'm not dealing with the same brother that had no clue. You know what I mean? It's like, Dr. King's wife never got married again. Neither did Malcolm X's wife, because you can't go from a brother that has a dream to a brother that don't have a clue. you can't do it.
No, you can't.
So we just need to understand who we are, connect with our own power, right, and then use it positively. Like, we brothers go to jail and they building all these muscles to beat up other brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Come on now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know for me, what I look at with a man to determine where he is spiritually and emotionally and psychologically, um, I look at how he treats his woman,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you could say you're all of this, right? You could
Mm-hmm.
say I'm the greatest man to walk the planet. You could make 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures. You could be active in your community. You could do all that. But if you don't love and uplift your children and your woman, who is a reflection of you,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what she is.
Mm-hmm.
Your wife is a reflection of you.
Mm-hmm.
Your woman is a reflection of you. So if you are busy being resentful, right, about where she is in her own walk, that's a reflection of you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if she's making a lot of money and she's a boss,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's a reflection of you.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at these things with men, and that's where I draw the line in the sand. Because as much as I want to be on board with the brothers, I'm watching how some of the brothers are treating the women, and just some of the things that the brothers say about us.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we angry, we bitter, we nasty, we this, we that. And my response would just be, so when you gonna start making us feel better?
Now that I have a daughter, and of course she's gonna start dating at some point.
Mm.
So I would let my daughter know one of the most important things to look at: what's his relationship with his mother?
Mm-hmm.
If you can't connect with the essence that brought you into the world, you can't connect with nobody. If you have a difficult relationship with your own mother, the woman that carried you in her womb for 9 months, if you can't connect with her, how can you connect with anybody? And it's so important, from a psychological standpoint, when a child is born, is that child nurtured?
Mm-hmm.
Is that child held and caressed? Does that child feel safe? Does that child feel loved? If you never had that, you don't understand love. Everything for you is transactional.
So is it his mommy issues?
Well, I think it's just the relationship between the two, right? If there is a problem with mother, right, there's going to be problems with the children. But if you aren't even trying to have a relationship with this woman, depending on the circumstances, and I mean, sometimes it's understandable. Mom might be out there,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you need to protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's not the situation, if you're having difficulty with the essence that brought you into this world, you're going to have difficulty with every relationship, because that's your first relationship and your most important.
So what do we do?
Well,
what does the sister do who already has they're gonna get mad at me. Is he a man child? What does the sister do with this guy? And we're not talking about financially. He might be a great provider.
Mm-hmm.
But if he still hasn't reached a place of self-love and self-appreciation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then she's sitting and she's feeling broken because she needs him to give it some things spiritually, right? Because there's this exchange of power that needs to take place, right? And it can't take place because they're in two separate places, right? So what do we do?
I think it's important when couples or when people are meeting and decide they want to come together. See, we spend a lot of time going to the movies and going out to dinner. We ain't talking about nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, baby, you look good. And no. Let's talk about the real issues. Brother, where do you see yourself in 2 years? What's your relationship with your mother, your father, your brothers, your sisters? What do tell me, what are your dreams?
Mm-hmm.
What was your upbringing like?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have that information, right then and there, does it mesh with my ideals, my upbringing, what I think, and what my dreams are? So if you sitting there and a brother doesn't really have any goals, it's time to ask for the check.
And that's preventative.
Mm-hmm.
right? Those are preventative measures.
Mm-hmm.
But again, what are we doing to arrest the situation that we're already in
Well,
without the destruction of the family unit?
well, again, it begins with conversation. It begins with education, and education starts in the home. You send your child to school, and that's only a portion of real education. A lot of stuff they're going to tell our kids about who we are ain't true anyway. So you need to come home and reinforce to your children, no, 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 no. Don't let them tell you that the history of black folks began when we got off the slave ships. No, that's not the truth.
Mm.
We go back eons before there were
Mhm.
even Europeans on this planet.
Mhm.
So don't let anybody tell you that. Don't let anybody tell you that you cannot achieve. And you know something? Just last week, a black woman was confirmed, as a justice on the
Mhm.
Supreme Court. Now, to be honest with you, I think that is a great personal achievement.
Mhm.
I don't know how much it's going to do for black people because we've had black chief justices. We got, Uncle Tom, Clarence Thomas up there, been there for 30 years,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
He don't do much for black folks at all.
Mhm.
But, that's a great personal achievement, and it shows what can be done,
Mhm.
right? So, there's so much potential in us, but most of us don't even recognize it,
Mhm.
and once we begin to recognize it, it'll begin to reflect in us and our relationships. We won't need to have these conversations like, you know who you are, brother. You know better than this. Brother, you don't belong on the street selling no drugs on the corner. That's not you.
But you know what, though, Ron? I think we had so many men in our community where they may have even turned away from that. Maybe they did those things in the street initially, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as they got older, they made changes. They transitioned into, for lack of a better term, straight laced guys,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But they still not feeling good about themselves, right? They still looking for all these external forces to give them a feeling of adequacy. And so my plight
Mm-hmm.
as a black woman, a single black woman,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, I talk to guys if they want to go on a date. 2 seconds into conversations, I'm running in the other direction
Mm-hmm.
because emotionally, guys are not sounding real healthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these are guys, 50-something-year-old guys that are not sounding real healthy. Not that they're bad people, but you hear you hear the deficiency in self-image and self-esteem in some of the things that they say.
Mm-hmm.
You could foresee that somewhere down the line there's going to be some resentment. So it's alarming to me, as a sister, because I would just like to heal the brothers.
Mm-hmm.
So this was one of the reasons why I wanted to look at this, because um, when by the time you get to your 50s, I'm sorry, of course we're living to be 100 now, but by the time you get to your 50s, you don't have another 40 years to get it right.
Absolutely.
And so what does a sister say to get through to a brother, to say you're valuable without anything external?
Two things. One of the major problems is religion, because religion tells you that the source of power is external and not internal, right? That's number one. Number two, there's really nothing more powerful than a sister who understands the nature of a man. That sister who really understands who she is can shape and mold this brother. I mean, you hear stories where dudes didn't care nothing about a woman, right? Run from one woman to the other, but it's one sister that did something different. And, for a lot of sisters, right, they get it confused. They think that sex and intimacy is the same thing, and it's not. That intimate time is where you're getting into this brother's brain, where you're telling him, right, and his vulnerable points. No, brother, you can do better than this, right? I see the potential in you, stuff he never heard before. See, other women kind of appeased him, right? They knew he didn't have a job, right? Knew he didn't have a job and says, oh, but it's okay. You're going to get a job. No, this woman is saying, no, brother, you're not going to get a job. You're going to own a business.
I know that's right.
You are going to go and employ other brothers, right? And see, he begins to see himself as in a different light. Maybe I'm not just a thug. Maybe I'm not just a brother, who didn't do so well academically, but that doesn't mean I still don't have the skill and the know-how. So, women who understand their nature and the nature of a man can shape and mold that brother. So when you see him, you might see him with his pants sagging off his behind. A couple of months with that sister, that brother come out with a suit and tie. He ain't on that corner no more. He going to different places. He's speaking differently. And you know something? He ain't worried about no other woman. I'm going back home to this woman right here.
Does that always happen, or eventually is it resentment?
Oh no, there's no resentment.
You don't really?
Oh, no. Listen, when you have a real one, you ain't going nowhere and ain't nothing to be resentful about. You know what I mean? You know that this sister, it's kind of like, molded you, made you into something, right? Helped you find out who you are. Where you going? You've been involved with women before, and you left them feeling maybe empty and dissatisfied. But this woman, it's just something about her, right? That she just tapped into your energy and brought it out. Resentment? Oh no, baby. I'm going to be home. If I tell you 6:30, 6:29, I'm coming through the door.
So where do we get this perception that the woman who's earning much more than her mate, where do we get this perception that the relationship is not working?
See, that's a Eurocentric problem.
Is it? Or is it really not working?
No, it's a Eurocentric problem because, we have told women throughout history, you can't do this, you can't do that. There were certain jobs that were denied to women. You couldn't be a doctor, you couldn't go to law school. Why not? So that is a European concept that we adopted when we came to this country and was forced and was made slaves through this process. Well, we picked up a lot of bad habits. In Africa, women were queens, running the show. No king, just me. I got this. And we respected her and we honored her as the queen.
She was a boss?
She was the boss. And when we come to this country, all of a sudden, the woman that was the queen, now we let her drive a school bus. Why? We tell women, oh, you're not, there's certain job titles that you can't do. It's the same thing they tell us. They told black men, you can't fly a plane. So here comes the Tuskegee Airmen and flew the hell out of those planes better than anybody ever did it. But that's the same thing we put on young women, right? So much so that we have to have laws passed to protect women and allow them equal opportunity. Title IX is about providing equal opportunity. Why don't we just do that naturally?
Well,
so I know we got a lot of work to do, but a lot of it, brothers, is working on yourselves. Not talking about the exterior, not talking about getting more jewelry and a nice car and a nice crib, right? Because all that is going to go. You know what I mean? One situation and it's all gone. But if you know who you are, that can never go. That's, that transcends.
So then we have to start right there. We have to confront the guys, the brothers, right? We have to confront them. Are we encouraging them to go to therapy? Yes. Say it with me.
Okay.
Therapy is good.
Therapy is good. Okay.
Okay. So they need to go to therapy. They need to not shun therapy because
well, nobody needs to. If you need help, you need help.
But we have to agree that in our community, therapy is not seen as something positive.
It's
right?
not.
No. There's
Right.
this negative stigma that we've attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, it's kept us from progressing emotionally and psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
It's kept us in a box, right? So at some point, we got to say, okay, I'm not feeding into this nonsense anymore. I'm going to go get the help I need, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay for me to need help. And here's the next piece. And maybe I need to work through some of the childhood trauma. Here's the next piece. For the
Mm-hmm.
brothers who you said that were in the street
Mm-hmm.
and that were on the corner, maybe we need to get to the etiology, the root of why they were doing that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then to the brothers that were in the street on the corner and maybe ended up incarcerated, we need to get to the root of how the incarceration may have affected them. That's lifelong. That's lifelong stuff.
Well, yeah, there's the prison pipeline,
Yeah.
right? And the reality is it's economic. You can't make money if the jail's empty.
Mm-hmm.
So, the thing is we need to be aware of these things. And, to know better is to do better. So if you know you are the prey, don't put yourself in a position.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you out there hunting deer, right? The deer's always looking around
Mm-hmm.
for you, using their senses. We as, people of color in this country, we need to use all our senses.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to be aware that, yes, we are the prey on many levels. And that the media is never going to tell the truth about who we are. Because, if you tell the true story of people of color, you destroy the concept of white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
It's over and it's done.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you realize, no, Black history didn't begin, when the ships docked in this country. That was the end
Mm-hmm.
of a glorious history. When you talk about what we did, the achievements that we've had in Africa, and even in this country, it destroys this whole concept that I'm better than you based simply on the fact that my skin is lighter.
Well, I think, Ron, this is a good time for me to just mention on the Real Romane page, I put up something looking for like mentors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important for guys, if they're on the page or if you're listening to the show, like our community needs you to mentor. It may be the next generation, or it may be somebody that's your peer that may just need a little bit of mentoring, right? Mm-hmm. But, if that's something you might be interested in, you could go on the Real Romane page on Facebook and you could actually sign up to be a mentor and know that you guys are needed, right? You are needed. The change has to begin with us.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't keep pointing the finger at the system unless we're ready to start to dismantle the system. And the dismantling of the system, it has to start with us.
It does. We have to dismantle the internal system first.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I need to go on and sign up.
You sure do.
Yeah. And maybe somebody else in the room.
Terry.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to throw nobody under the bus.
Hey, I'm always down.
Yes. I think we have work to do, and I think we could do it. I'm real excited about the Unity in the Community Day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm real excited about that. I want to see my family come out. I want to see, everybody I know in the community. I want to see us come out because, again, it has to start with us.
Mm-hmm.
It has to start with us. And that's not to say that day is just for us. But how about we show up and be present?
Yeah, that day is really for everybody.
Yes.
It's about, we're all human beings.
Yes.
We're all struggling with something, right? And there's so much that the media or the tactics they use to keep us divided, when in reality, we're all just people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter, the lightness or the darkness of your skin.
Mm-hmm.
We're all here on this planet, sharing this planet, right? And, we can live on it in peace, or we can destroy it, right? Which is foolish.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to recognize that, we're really not that different. So, yeah, that's going to be a great day.
It is.
I know it's in August. You know the date in August?
August 27th.
Okay, August 27th at Dansbury Park, right?
Yes.
So, folks, if you're listening, come on. This is going to be a great day. There's going to be activities for the children. And we just need to, build ties to the community, There's so much going on that we just aren't aware of.
Mm-hmm.
So, we getting close to that hour. And it goes by so fast, when you're having a great conversation with great company. And next week we'll be back again. Romane is going to be here next week.
I'm back.
I know you folks missed her,
I'm back.
but she is back, right? So keep listening, keep tuning, keep supporting Gynesis Radio. So with that, Romane,
Peace out.
good
Grace,
night, folks.
Peace.
All right.